Gianna, we're going to really be working you hard because now you're a presenter, and then when you're done presenting, you're not going to leave because now you're going to have to be a host, and hopefully you'll be a much better host. You can't be a better host than Dacia is, but hopefully you'll be a better host than I am. So, but first now we want to hear about your fantastic invention, which is called Blindingly Smart.
Right.
Ooh.
Okay. So this is the Blindly Smart. It is a board game that all ages can play, from 4 years old all the way up. And I created this game because I personally have a blind grandparent and I volunteered at a special needs school. I noticed that the blind students had a really hard time connecting with the other students. So I wanted to create a way for both my grandmother and those students to connect with others and still have fun. So I created this game. And I found out there are 39 million people in the world that are blind. So I figured that as I'm helping these students and my grandmother, I could help all of these people too. So the way that, well, first I'm just gonna show you, this is what I have in my game. I have multiple expansion packs, but this is the original pack that goes with the board. And I have all my instructions that are in Braille. There are regular instructions for people that have sight, and these instructions are in Braille. I also have blindfolds that are included with the game, just in case people with sight want to feel, experience what it's like to be blind and play the game. So the way that you play my game is that you have this deck of cards, and the first player will draw a card off the top of the deck. This card has Braille and the picture is raised, so blind people can read the Braille and feel the picture. So you'll have 1 minute to read the fact that is on the card and feel the picture. Once that 1 minute is up, then you have to give the picture to another player, and then you have 2 minutes to look on the board and flip up as many cards as you can to try and match the picture that was on the card from the deck on the one on the board. If you cannot do that, then you do not earn a point. If you can, then you earn 1 point. You also have an opportunity to earn 2 points if you give one fact that was on the card, because each card has multiple facts about it, and each expansion pack has different topics. So there's one for teens. This original expansion pack is based off of blind people, so that way blind people can learn more about themselves and people with sight can learn about blind people. And this process all continues with the point system until one player earns 10 points. Do you have any questions?
There we go. Oh.
I have so many questions. So how far are you in this process? Like, have you already sold things?
I have not sold anything yet, but I am working on getting a patent. That way I can put it onto the market and hopefully sell it. But I have used my invention with the students at the special needs school and with my family and some other blind families that I came in contact with.
And what did you find? How did they like it?
They all love the game. I went through a few different prototypes though, because at first I just had these small thin cards that were just on a table, and it was like a memory game and you would try and pick it up. But I found that that game wasn't very fun and the cards were too thin for blind people to accurately pick up and feel the Braille on. So I went through those different prototypes with the families and the children, and I came up with this final invention. Each card is 0.5 millimeters thick. That way it's easy to grab and to handle. It's all Velcroed onto the board, so that way you can take off the cards for different rounds of the game or different expansion packs. In the end, after I went through all these prototypes, the families ended up loving the game and the children ended up loving the game, and I really think that it helped the blind students communicate with the sighted ones.
Can you give us an example of what's on the card? What kind of things there are?
Oh, sure. So here's the card that I drew earlier. And on the card, it says that an estimated 253 million people live with vision impairments. So that's just a sample from the facts about blind people. And I'm sure that you saw the eye that was corresponding with the fact that was on the card. And There's the kids expansion pack that I also created. So an example from this pack would be learning Braille. So I just have, for example, a number on the card that's also in Braille. So the kids would try and match the trace number on the card with the one on the board while still learning what that number represents in Braille.
So once they get it right, they go to the board and then pull up the card and then try to read it with their hand?
So the way that they would play the game would be similar to the original game. So they would pick up a card, they would try and trace the letter or the number that is on the card, and then they try to find the one that matches on the board. It's similar to a memory game, except they're not allowed to see the cards on the board firsthand. And then if they find it, then they earn a point, and if they do not, then they don't earn a point. And if they're able to accurately write out the letter, well, more type out the letter because they have typewriters in Braille, then they'll be able to earn another point. So it's very similar to the first game.
So how do you go about feeling around the board? Do you have to move around?
It's a very interactive game because you can just, the board is weighted so that way it doesn't tip over or fall.
Okay.
That way, if you accidentally push it, it won't fall over, and then you just flip up these cards on the board. So it's kind of like a speed game too, because then you just have to go as quickly as you can, feel the cards that are on the board, flip them up, and then once your 1 minute is over, then you have to see if you recognize the right card and show it to the other players.
Jianna, you have fans literally all over the world. I am serious. We've just got a question for you from Mexico, and the person is asking, have you thought of another game? Any other types of games?
Any other types of games? So far, ever since I was little, I've always been thinking of inventions, and I've always loved games. So I have thought of a few other games. I am in Girl Scouts, so I was thinking of making a game similar to that, but also to be catered to different people. So there's a lot of different things that I've thought of, but there aren't any games that I've really put as much work into as I have with the Blindly Smart.
Do you have an estimated price for this? It looks like it'd be rather expensive with all the different extensions.
It does look like it would be rather expensive, but since I wanted to make it affordable, I just took in all the material costs, and it turns out to be about $12.11 to create and to sell, so that would be the marketing price. It does sound a little bit expensive, but considering the hard plastic and the weighted bottom and all of the cards, and since you have to type it out in Braille and in English, in any language for sighted people, then it would estimate to about that cost. And since there's a higher number of blind people in third world countries, I really wanted to make sure that it would be affordable for them too. That way they could still have fun and play the game.
Jianna, I happen to know that in the United States, they have American Sign Language for people who are deaf. And in other countries, they also have sign languages, but they are different. And even in United Kingdom, where we speak English and they speak English, they have a different sign language. I don't know about Braille. Is Braille more universal, or is it completely different in other countries?
Braille can slightly differ depending on which country you're in, but it's all very similar. So for example, it would be like, not exactly talking with an accent, but there are just certain letters that differ, and some other forms of Braille are very different, but it's easy to translate between the different types of Braille, so it wouldn't be too hard to manufacture for different countries, since Braille is mostly universal.
So you could make an English version, you could make a Spanish version, you could make a French version?
Yes.
Wow, very impressive, very impressive.
Thank you.
Well, Jianna, this is exciting. I can't wait to see it out in the stores. My mother-in-law is actually a instructor for deafblind and does a lot of work in this area. So having games that they can play makes a lot of sense. Also, our STEM challenge today was to create a game. So that's pretty apropos that you brought this one in. In just a few moments, we're going to turn you from a panelist into a host, just by virtue of going, ah. So we are excited to do that. Jake, we have a question from Daniel. If you'll look at the chat, see if you can answer that for him this moment. Jianna, what's next for you?
For me, as an inventor, I always love to invent, of course, like I said previously, and I do think I'll continue inventing. I've been part of an invention program, and I plan to continue with that. I've made inventions in a lot of different areas, and I hope to continue with that too, because there's so many different problems in this world, and I see them every day, and I know I can't solve all of them, but I mean, I'll try my best to. So I'd love to continue inventing for sure.
Well, that sounds great. Well, we're going to let you grab your notes or anything you need for the hosting, because in just a moment we're turning it. We'll be here and we'll smile at you, but you're doing it. So you'll be introducing all of our guests, and our next guest is coming in. So grab your stuff and get ready for your hosting duty. If you need to change hats or anything,